In 2007, a small patch of brain tissue called the anterior insula erased a 20-year smoking addiction in a single moment, and neuroscientists still cannot explain how the craving simply vanished, with no withdrawal, no relapse, and no memory of ever wanting a cigarette again. The case sits inside a University of Iowa lesion registry, a database of patients with damage to specific brain regions, tracked for decades after strokes, tumors, or injuries. Researchers Nasir Naqvi, Antoine Bechara, and Hanna Damasio pulled records on smokers whose brain damage happened to land in different locations. Most of them kept smoking. Habits like that usually survive strokes, surgeries, even comas. But 19 patients had damage in one specific fold of tissue behind the temple, the anterior insula. Every one of them told the same story. The urge to smoke did not fade. It stopped existing. Here is the anomaly. These patients did not quit the way people normally quit. There was no craving to resist, no irritability, no white-knuckling through a bad week. One man described putting out a cigarette mid-drag after his stroke and simply never picking one up again, not from willpower, but because the desire itself had disappeared, like a word on the tip of his tongue that never returned. Compared to smokers with damage elsewhere in the brain, these patients were over 100 times more likely to quit easily and stay quit. The insula, it seemed, was the address of the addiction itself. The obvious theory followed fast. Maybe the insula was just a reward hub, and damaging it flattened pleasure everywhere, cigarettes included. Addiction researchers had long suspected some bridge between bodily sensation and craving. If that bridge collapsed, cravings of every kind should collapse with it. Simple. Tidy. Case closed, the theory implied, just another pleasure center knocked offline by injury. But here's what makes that impossible. These same patients still enjoyed meals. They still wanted sex, coffee, affection, sleep. Ordinary pleasure stayed intact, sharp as ever. Only the craving for nicotine and in some patients alcohol disappeared, a razor-precise deletion, not a broad shutdown. That ruled out a blunt reward center explanation. Something narrower was happening, something tied not to pleasure in general but to a very specific kind of bodily forecasting. Decades earlier, neuroscientist Bud Craig had documented a patient known as Roger, whose insula was destroyed by viral encephalitis. Roger could no longer feel his own heartbeat, could not sense hunger or thirst building inside him, yet he still reported feeling things in some dimmed, second-hand way. The insula wasn't where feeling lived. It was where the body's internal state got translated into something the mind could act on. That's the deepest part of this. The anterior insula is packed with a rare kind of brain cell called a von Economo neuron. Large, fast, spindle-shaped cells found almost nowhere else in the animal kingdom except in great apes, elephants, and whales, species built for complex social awareness. Their job, as best anyone can tell, is interoception, reading blood pressure, oxygen levels, muscle tension, and turning raw physiology into a felt sense of self. A craving under this model isn't a chemical itch. It's a prediction, the insula simulating how good or how relieved the body will feel one cigarette from now, and presenting that simulation to consciousness as desire. Damage the insula, and the body can't run the simulation anymore. There's nothing left to want, because the future feeling was never generated in the first place. Other explanations keep failing to cover it. Dopamine reward theory can't explain why food and sex stayed pleasurable while nicotine alone vanished. Habit loop theory, the idea that cues and routines drive addiction, can't explain why patients felt no friction breaking a 20-year routine overnight. Pure willpower theory collapses entirely. These patients weren't resisting anything. The desire simply wasn't rendered. Even Naqvi's own team has been careful never to call this a cure, because nobody has found a safe way to replicate a stroke on purpose, and nobody fully understands what else the insula quietly controls that these patients might have lost without noticing, which leaves the actual mystery untouched. If one fold of tissue can delete a craving that felt, from the inside, like an unbreakable part of a person's identity, what else is the anterior insula quietly generating right now, inside you, that you'd swear was simply who you are.